Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by the founder and life force coach of Healing Our Grieving Hearts. That's Dr. Kay Fontana. She joins us again here live today to talk more about grief and, of course, how she's here and dedicating her life to helping you as a grief recovery specialist. So there's so many people out there, especially now during the holidays. I know we discussed that a lot last week, that could really use help with grief. So welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Jill, for having me back.
Great. And just to confirm your email address or maybe website, how did you want people to reach you?
My website is healingourgrievinghearts.com, and you can send me a message there, or you can email me at k@healingourgrievinghearts.com.
Perfect. And for those that may not know a little bit about yourself and what you do, would you mind just telling us again? And again, I just want to hope you and your family had a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, we did. Thank you. So I embarked on this journey not that long ago. I've been a life coach for about 18 years and a grief recovery specialist for 10 years. And I was doing a lot of grief work um, before my husband passed away in January of 2023. But prior to that, about a year before that, I actually didn't do a lot of grief work because I was focused on my husband's health. And so I kind of put that aside. Then after he passed, it's like, I just can't deal with this right now. So I am kind of lost and I need to find my way again. So it was purely by accident that I heard someone, no, well, there are no accidents, but it was
Yeah.
perfect timing that I went to an event and listened to this young teenager talk about, his life for the last 10 years after his father passed away. And he was a firefighter and he lost his life in a major fire here in Arizona. And it really inspired me to go back to grief work. And, his message was you can be bitter or you can be better. And he chose to be better based on his dad and what his dad wanted. And I went home with that information and I said, oh my gosh, if this kid can do this, then I
Yeah.
can too. So I went back to my grief work and decided that this is what I wanted to do. Being a grieving widow, that I needed to help other grieving widows and anyone else that was that needed some help with their grief. So that's how Healing Our Grieving Hearts was born.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And again, I appreciate you sharing your story. It's so personal and it's heartbreaking. It's so hard to lose. And I know we've discussed before grief, right, comes in many forms. And of course, the loss of a loved one, but there's grief in other ways of losing a job,
Mhm.
losing things that are, why don't you tell me some of the other areas of grief and then we'll get started for today's show. Thank you.
Oh, there's so many. There's, the loss of a job, the loss of finances, any relationship, a divorce, estrangement, um, and of course, the death of, family, friends, and even your pets. But there's also loss, an intangible loss is loss of faith and loss of trust, which accompanies like estrangement and divorce and things like that. Loss of faith can revolve around death or the loss of, a relationship or,
Yeah.
um, because, people have a tendency of blaming something, that
Always. Yep.
there's some reason. But there's also, moving across country or, losing a home to a fire or, any number. There's over 40 different types of losses. And so they can impact people in a variety of ways.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And what did you want to kind of focus on for our listeners here today?
Well, I think because my purpose and my passion is helping people with their
Yeah.
purpose and passion, I want to cover that. And I want to talk about, How can you find your purpose and passion after loss? Because, especially when, as a widow, or widower, that, you've lost half of your partnership and you've been used to doing everything together, from, going to events or going to church, or even, for a while there, my husband and I actually, a couple times, we were both paramedics. So we actually worked in the same job, but on different shifts. So it was like our life was around our careers. And so people, when you lose a spouse, it's like you've lost part of you. And it's almost like an attachment. You're so used to having them around. So when that happens, people have to rediscover themselves, have to find their new normal. And it's like, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have my spouse with me? I have to find something new. And that can be a real challenge for people.
Oh, my goodness. I know it's always so hard, but I just love saying this, and it sounds so cliche, but time does heal. But again, we'll talk about that later. Go ahead.
So, your purpose is, your purpose in life is not just a job or a career or something that you like to do. It is something that you absolutely love to do. And it's something that really satisfies you and excites you and gives you a reason to get up in the morning. So, the first clue in finding that purpose is to consider what you're passionate about. Now,
Hmm.
your passion drives your purpose.
Yeah.
So, your passion is that burning desire to devote all of your time and energy to do something that brings you joy to your heart, brings joy to your soul. And it's something that, if money were no object, you would do it without being paid for, and of course,
So
people
true.
want to get paid for their passion, but
Of course, but
but it's something that really drives them. So, to uncover your passion, you think about experiences in your life that have made you happy. What has made you happy aside from, being a partner with your spouse? But what has made you happy in your life? What has really made the biggest impact on you? And what have you enjoyed doing from, in your life from childhood all the way to the present? And that was one thing that I really sat with for a while, is looking at, like patterns in your life. And people don't really recognize patterns sometimes, when they go from one job to another to another. But typically there are patterns.
yep.
And mine was always in the helping professions. And so I really had to take a look at that. It's like, okay, well, I love helping people, and in a variety of ways, being a paramedic, that was in, one of the helping professions. I worked in helping volunteers in hospice care. And, my dissertation for my doctoral program was actually on mindfulness and compassion, in hospice dementia care volunteers, because my
Oh,
mom had Alzheimer's. So
yep.
being with volunteers who are engaged with individuals with dementia, and what were their characteristics and qualities, and they absolutely loved doing what they were doing, and I wanted to find out what it was they were doing that inspired them to get to that point. So that's a little off subject, but and your purpose is using your passion and your gifts and your talents to um
Yeah.
to help others, in whatever way that is. Some people find that when they've lost, like for instance, um and I can't even imagine anyone going through this, but the loss of a child.
I knew you were going to
And
say that.
I,
I don't know how, and I do know people, and I know that
yes,
they're okay now. And
yeah,
I just
it-
babies to teenagers to
right.
adults. I can't. But
I know. I can't either. And it's like I'm so grateful that I have not been through that experience. And and I hope I never do. But but these individuals that have lost children have found, a lot of them have found a way, and they've done so by really focusing on what maybe it was, if their child died of cancer, they're focused on helping others with cancer, volunteering in a cancer center. Or that's how Mothers Against Drunk Driving what started, from a drunk driver. So it's there's so many ways of looking at it. What inspires you? What about this death of, whether it's a child or a spouse or a family member, a parent, what is it that really touches your heart about it?
yeah,
And I firmly believe that in every horrific situation, there is a gift somewhere, and that gift is where your passion and purpose come from.
yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. Like, when my mom passed over 7 years now from cancer,
Mm,
I learned, wow, this is so beautiful to be with someone in the end, how hard it is, but
yes,
makes me passionate about wanting to help those in the end. And I wish
right.
I could financially follow this path of doing hospice work and
Mhm.
being with people during that time of need, to get to know them, to be with them, because I got goosebumps. It's beautifully amazing. But I need to work and make money right now, and I have two little kids, but that's
Oh
something I'm
yeah,
passionate about. But like, I know we want to
exactly.
follow our passions, and to help people like that. You're right. You realize you have other passions sometimes, and maybe they're not economically what you want to do, but you hope
Right.
one day you could do them. And yeah, and just, oh, I got the biggest goosebumps. I mean, not
Well,
because I'm in a tank top. I was sweating this morning, but yes.
and even if you do it for, like a evening volunteer work, people get started in volunteering in a few hours a week, like in hospice care.
Yeah,
I know many of the agencies around here, some have like a requirement of 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week or maybe 4 hours a month, and to be an active volunteer. And there's different ways of looking at it. You can just volunteering a couple hours during
that's
the
so true.
week
Yeah.
can possibly potentially lead to something full time down the road,
You're right.
if
Good point. That's a
yeah,
great point. Thank you
yeah.
for bringing that up. Thank you so much. And at this time, Dr. K, I just would love to remind everyone all the ways we can reach out to you. I'll share the website, healingourgrievinghearts.com. And again, she's helping those out there navigate through loss, to help you find their purpose. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, she can work with you virtually, correct? And
That's
just
right, I can.
perfect. And also, if you go to that website, there's you offer a free is it some
It's
a
called a
grief.
grief breakthrough session. So
That's
it's
right.
a 30-minute free session where we talk about your grief and see if we're a good fit to work together, or if you just want, some feedback on where to go from there. And whether you want to work with me or not, that's not the point. The point is to actually just talk about your grief and find out what are the best options for you.
Beautiful. And you offer the guide, right? For people, the six,
Yes,
what is that?
there's a free guide, a grief guide on my website you can download.
Great.
Just put in your name and email, and you'll get free access to that guide that you can download. So, and that
Beautiful.
one is provided by the Grief Recovery Institute, where I was certified as a grief recovery specialist. So it has a lot of good information in there about grief, and some key points of talking about the myths of grief. That was a hard one to say. And some of the some of the comments that people might say to
Yeah.
you that could trigger emotions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right, Dr. K. Fontana, what else about grief did you want to discuss for today? And also, I just have to reiterate just a little bit we touched upon last time about this time during the holidays. It is extra hard. That's normal. That's
Yes.
okay, right?
Right, absolutely. Yesterday, at my church, I actually did a ceremony of remembrance
Oh,
for individuals in our community that have lost a loved one. And it didn't matter how long ago they passed away, because I find that when I work with people, they bring up they bring up losses that can be decades old, losses from childhood, losses, as a teenager, that they've just stuffed away. And because our culture doesn't really recognize how to speak with people who are grieving. And it's, I don't want to say it's taboo, but it's close, because
yeah,
people aren't taught how to communicate with those who are grieving, and they end up saying some things that are not intended to be hurtful, but it's because they don't know what to say. And so
yeah.
this ceremony that I conducted yesterday was, I gave an opportunity for individuals to speak about their losses and to maybe share a story about someone in their life that they lost, or like both parents, or a sibling, or a friend. One individual, she spoke up and said that she just lost her best friend from childhood on last
Oh
Monday.
my gosh.
And so it was really raw. And but she had an opportunity to share that, and she was really grateful for that, because it ordinarily, that wouldn't be something that would come into conversation. So it was really beautiful. And I put together a slideshow, movie, like a slideshow to music, for all of the people who submitted
Wow.
pictures
Mhm.
to me. And it was really lovely. And I got a lot of great feedback for it. And they said, maybe you have a career in this. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Aw,
But
beautiful.
and that all started when I did the video presentation for my husband's celebration of life. And it was just a creation of love, based on our lives together. So, and our kids too.
Always important. I
So,
love taking pictures and making sure you have them. I love that idea. Thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely. And it's a great way to recognize and honor a loved one. There's so many ways that people can honor a loved one, and maybe that's something we can talk about next week,
Sure.
because I have a whole list of them.
I'm sure.
So, and yeah, I had one client who, a family member passed away, but she passed away out of state, and so she had to go home to her funeral that was actually arranged by someone, another family member.
Yeah.
And she walked away from that very disappointed. And she wanted to work on her grief around her relative, and she did. And then at the end she said, I was really disappointed in her funeral. Do you have any suggestions for how to honor
Wow.
her in another way? I said, absolutely. So, we talked about that. I shared a lot of opportunities for her that she could do right here. So, right
Beautiful.
where she's at.
See, we're already jumping the gun for next week. Um, and let me just ask, when you're working with someone like yourself, it's always good to know, how do we do this? How often are we meeting? What type of programs do you offer? And I know it's different for everyone, I'm sure, of how
Mhm,
long the time you need, but could you give us
mhm.
kind of an overview of that? Walk us through the coaching process?
Absolutely. So, once someone meets with me for that complimentary grief breakthrough session, then we look at what would be the best option for them, and
Okay.
their opportunity is the opportunities that I have are going through the grief recovery method,
Yeah.
and individually it's a 7-week program, but
Okay.
as a group it's an 8-week program, just because there's more conversation and breakout sessions. So, and then I can do that online or in person. And then the coaching program, I have a 3-month and a 6-month coaching package, which where we look at doing an assessment, and it's a life force coaching session. So I use a lot of energy healing and modalities, and that I can do online, but I can also do it in person too. And eventually I would like to open up to a group program, where people can come together and share their stories, and then engage in activities that help them move forward. So
I love
I
that.
absolutely love what I do, and it's something that gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, what were you doing before this? Before, the unfortunate loss of your husband. Tell me what life was like.
What life was like? Well, I was at one point working full time, and I was interesting enough, I can't even remember the title of it off the top of my head, but I worked for the state's donor network,
Oh, wow.
where with organ and tissue donation. But my job was speaking with grieving families
Mm,
and talking to them, working them through the process of tissue donation. And
wow.
um, you know, many people have signed up to be donors, and so engaging them in conversation over their losses was, so I've kind of always been in that type of work, oddly enough. So but then, because my husband was getting ill and having some issues with falling a lot and breaking bones and things like that, breaking bones because of the medication that he was taking, then I quit my job. And so I left my job to take care of him. So I was his caregiver for probably the last year or so of his life. And year or more, right? I can't remember exactly when I left my job,
Hmm.
but so it was, that was a full-time job taking care of him. So
Ah, you've always been in the care business. Wow, you see? But really, right? But like you say, new things happen in life, and sometimes you
I,
discover, you have loss and you start something totally different, something new, or stay in the similar field. But
I,
I love that you wake up every day and this is makes you happy. And that's, I
yeah,
think, a good life lesson to everyone that's important. And
yeah,
maybe right now you're going through a hard time and there's something you're not waking up for. You're not feeling that way, but know that it's
right.
possible and that by talking about things and being with other people who have been through what you've been through, you'll get through it and find
Yeah.
that mean again, that purpose again, I should say.
Absolutely. And it is possible. I read so many things on Facebook about people who have lost their spouses, and they just don't know how they can go on. And every chance I get, I try to encourage them. You can get through this, and you will get through this. And yeah, it really sucks right now, but you
Yeah.
can do it. And um just giving them some hope, because it's at that time when you lose someone that is so significant in your life, it's like sometimes it seems hopeless, but there is hope and there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep, I love hearing that, and
Yeah.
it's so true. And we have only 2 more minutes left in the show
Oh, yeah.
today. How did you kind of want to sum up for today's show?
Well, again, like I do, like I have in the past shows, is, you know, don't do this alone. And if you need help,
Yeah.
then reach out, whether it is a therapist, whether it's a coach, whether it's your spiritual leader, a trusted family member or friend that would actually listen to you um, and help you through this. But don't do it alone. There's so many options out there, and if you need help finding something, then please contact me and I can help you in the right direction.
All right, tell us that website again and or phone number, any form of contact that you want our listeners to
Okay,
reach out to
so
you with. Thank you.
it's healingourgrievinghearts.com, and you can reach me by email at kay at healingourgrievinghearts.com. And you can also look on my Facebook page. I post some things on Facebook. It's facebook.com/kay dot Fontana, Fontana.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you here. And
Thank you,
again,
Jill.
thank you so much and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And by the way, you're in Arizona, right?
Yes, I'm in Arizona.
How's the weather today?
Actually, it's chilly. It
Well,
was
what's chilly? Don't tell me chilly's like 70.
no 45. It was 45 this morning when I got up. I don't know what it is right now, but it was chilly.
All right, I'm not so jealous. It's like 40 in New York too. All right, I don't feel so bad. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, sweetheart. And that's always another thing when you're going through grief, right? You got to find something and somewhere that you're happy with. And I mean, I just you looking out that window, it's got to be so beautiful, you know. And if not, maybe take a vacation. Go
Yeah.
somewhere that you love, that you want to be. If it's near the beach, or if it's in the mountains, if it's in the
Yes.
snow. But yeah, and surround yourself with great people, positive people, and people
Yes,
that you love.
absolutely.
And if you don't have anyone, don't worry, you'll find someone.
Yeah.
And you know what? You got to start talking to people, obviously like Dr. K, who's been through what you've been through, and you'll find your way. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you, Jill. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.